Welcome back to the Bionicle Inspiration series. We're the nocturne of your Bionicle collection, because even though we're in some dark, scary, strange times, we got some glow-in-the-dark pieces, and we're going to shine a light in this dark and scary time and give you a bit of inspiration. So if you're at home now, you're quarantining, you're drinking a quarantini, or you're just feeling a little quarantini right now. I didn't like that last one, but obviously some interesting times. But you know what? Maybe you've got a little bit more time to build, so hopefully we can inspire you today to do exactly that. And today's episode is going to be all about head designs, but a more simplistic take on a head design. What exactly does that mean? Essentially, I'm going to show you, I believe it's 7 head designs in this episode today that aren't overly complicated to make, but it's a step up from just putting a mask on a Bionicle. It's adding something else to it, or finding more unique ways that you could put an interesting head design onto a mock. You know, it's not super custom, it's not super difficult to do. We're just focusing on some more simplistic takes on it so that you can have a really unique head design on a mock, really take it to another step up, but it not be overly difficult to do so. If you're still confused, let's jump in. Let's start looking at some, and I'll show you what I mean. So the first head design we've got today is by Alex Park Designs, and it's called Feugrin. So this here is what I mean by a more simplistic head design. Now, just a caveat, as it were, when I say simple, that doesn't in any way mean that it's bad or that it's poorly made. Simple just in terms of it's easy to construct, but just because it's easy to construct doesn't mean that it doesn't lack skill to do. So I don't want to diminish any of the builds that I'm talking about today, because everyone's done a fantastic job. But, you know, if you want to have a more easy approach, you're still not too sure about your skills with this whole Bionicle thing, here's some simplistic approaches that are really well done that you can put on your own stuff, or at least take ideas from, and we can see where we go with that. So what I love so much about this head design is this beautiful pop of color. The mock, of course, is gunmetal and gold, but this beautiful pop of trans orange here really shines on this mock. And it's a really unique take. Kind of like the idea, at least how I picture this mock, is it's sort of this fire elemental inside a metallic suit of armor that sort of holds together his physical form. But he's like a tower of fire, or a being of fire of some kind, and so his elemental powers just sort of come out specifically around his head. I think that's really, really cool. The quote here for this mock says, "The infinite furnace flows forever." So maybe I'm not too far off here. But what's so interesting about this is, like I said, it's a simplistic head design. It just uses the trans orange Tahu mask that I believe came in one of the polybag sets. It was actually a fun polybag. I believe I picked that one up. But the other subtle addition of adding a bunch of these Glatorian heads in trans orange coming out almost like a sort of ponytail, or just sort of an interesting kind of streak. And those are, of course, attached with ball joints there. Very simple connection, but a really unique and distinct look. Not something you see every day. And it's a great way of him playing with the color blocking here, just concentrating all of the trans orange in that one specific spot. There's this beautiful sense of motion with it as well, this sort of sense of kind of flow almost with this almost like hair-like design, or just sort of wisp of fire kind of coming out of the back of the head there. It's really, really beautifully done. And it's a simple little addition, just a slight little thing here, but it's done a lot to the mock. And the fact that it is this beautiful pop of color really makes it shine, really makes it cool. It's not that complicated to build, and you could do something very simply yourself, exactly like this. So I really, really like that. It's a very simplistic head design, but works really well. Very similar as well with some of the limbs on this mock here, specifically the arms. They're just your basic prefab shells and bone hero factory pieces there. The legs seem to be more or less the same, just sort of layering the armor in a very beautiful fashion there, so there's not too many gaps or anything. The torso might be a little bit more custom. It's a little hard to tell from these pictures here, but yeah, it looks fantastic. So really nice work, Alex Park Designs. I think that's hopefully a good example to show you what I mean in this episode today by simple but really effective head designs here. So let's jump over to another mock. This one is by Cody Avery Design, and this one is called Spider-Mon King. So this is a fantastic, really, really well designed mock here, and it's using a Ben 10 headpiece. So that's always something to think about as well. Sure, you've got your typical Hero Factory masks, your Bionicle G1 or G2 masks, and, they work. There's nothing necessarily wrong with using those, but never forget there's a whole bunch of other construction themes like Ben 10, Knight's Kingdom, a few other different things. you could be using some of those headpieces on a mock, and it could work really, really well. One thing I love so much about this Ben 10 head monkey, spider monkey headpiece here is that it has this sort of roaring, almost like yelling expression on it, which is unique. You don't really get that with a lot of Lego pieces. I feel like typically Lego likes to have a lot of their characters smiling just to be happy and nice. You know, you see that specifically on like Captain America and a lot of the minifigure prints there. So it might be a bit different with construction, but regardless, it's always cool to see a very distinct facial expression on a headpiece here. And I think it actually serves this mock really well, because this mock has this almost sort of savage look to some degree. These sort of spider legs, which is a really unique and interesting design. This sort of golden armor as well, and the spikes on his back does look like he is this sort of kind of powerful, you know, king-like character that maybe lives out in jungles and, you know, rules over a very large kingdom or something. I think it's pretty cool. He has this sort of more aggressive look to him, and so that mask works really well for doing that. It also flows beautifully with a whole bunch of these different shades of blue pieces here, which a lot of those pieces are Ben 10 construction specific pieces, so always great to see that sort of stuff being used, and really cool as well to note that some Hero Factory armor can slot really well onto some of those pieces as well. That's awesome to see. So yeah, I think it's a really great idea to do that, to pay attention to some of the facial expressions that exist on non-Bionicle or Hero Factory pieces, and see if that could actually serve one of your mocks. You know, again, this isn't that complex of a head design, it's just simply putting the Spider Monkey headpiece on, but if you have any of those obscure construction themes, Galador to name another one, you know, could you use some of those headpieces? Could they work really, really well? And here's a couple other mocks that use the exact same headpiece, and they do it really well. This is a mock by Mitch Henry, and it's called Kalashnikov Cyber-Monkey. Kalashnikov Cyber-Monkey. Look, I'm probably getting that wrong. Besides the point, though, this Spider Monkey head, the textures on it, the very kind of fur monkey-like texture, flows beautifully, almost seamlessly, with these Galador pieces that are being used here. This, of course, all these Galador pieces are from the Galador set Nipol. I'll throw up a picture there for you. But it's absolutely beautiful seeing how those two pieces, those two textures rather, work so well together. That's awesome to see, you know, and that's another thing too. Pay attention to just some of the other random headpieces, specifically in regards to textures, because maybe those two things could work seamlessly like this, and you get just a really beautiful look. I also love too the kind of beautiful contrast between the furred texture and then the black tires and these guns and these tubes, this sort of beautiful mesh of sort of a more, you know, natural fur-like texture and these more advanced robotic guns. It's just really creative and really unique. And I think I have to, of course, mention this mock was inspired by a mock by Radix, which is of the exact same name. And so it's interesting to see two builders really playing off of each other here. Mitch getting inspired by this build and kind of doing his own version of this character here. Now we can see the original one here has more of a sort of cybernetic look with the arms there, kind of looking like prosthetic limbs of some kind, and more of a distinct handheld gun here, which is awesome. But yeah, again, using the similarly textured pieces here, it's really, really cool to see. So I love that. I love that idea of doing that. Not only partnering textures with totally different themes, putting them together, seeing if it works, but also the idea of building your own version of another person's character. There is the term for that called MOV, so typically mock, of course, standing for my own creation, MOV standing for my own version. So nothing wrong with doing that. You know, sometimes people go like, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that because it's stealing. Like I can't, you know, build this character because someone else has already done it, or I'd be stealing it or whatever. Well, it could just be a MOV. It could be your own version of it, you know? It's beautiful. I love seeing the two distinct differences between the original here and then Mitch's version. Just seeing how the one builder has advanced certain concepts, played with it more, taken it in a different direction, but also how it's similar to the other one. So never forget you can do that too. If there's a character design that you just freaking love that someone else has made, there is no reason you can't just simply build your own version of it, because you're not stealing, you're advancing upon it. You're seeing the ways that you can take it, you're making it your own. So never forget that a my own version, a MOV as it were, is totally a route you can take, and a really fun one too, and something that I think is also really humbling for builders as well. Like, anytime I've seen people, you know, take Cossy myself mock, or some people have even done it with other creations, whether they're Bionicle or not, that I've made, and they've gone like, hey, yeah, I was really heavily inspired by what you did. And so I'm going to make my own version of it, and that's so awesome to see. Just that's from my perspective, at least. Maybe other people have a different opinion on that. But if there's a builder out there that you really like what they do, never forget that could be actually a really cool way of just thanking them, or just something that they would love to see. Like, don't be worried that builders are going to get upset by that. Do it. It's awesome. It's cool. And it's a great tool for you as well, because it can serve as a beautiful inspiration point, because when you see something cool, you go, cool, I'm going to do my own version of this now. It's just an interesting route you could take. So give it a try. Yeah, 3 beautiful mocks here, 3 beautiful examples of different ways to use this spider monkey headpiece here. It's awesome. Just quickly, before we finish up on this one though, Cody Avery, this guy here, he built the original first one that I was showing you. This guy here, he built some really cool stuff, but he also, I'll read straight up what he said here in the email. He says, I don't know if you have or would ever share Bionicle art on the Bionicle Inspiration series, but I'll attach a couple too. You can find my art on my Instagram, which is Cody Avery Design. So here's some pictures of some really beautiful Bionicle art that he's done here. Typically, I don't sort of show this sort of thing, but it's Bionicle art. Of course, I'm going to show this sort of thing. That's awesome. So be sure to check out his Instagram there, because he has drawn some incredible stuff. So if you're just a fan of Bionicle and just like looking at some Bionicle, even if it isn't Lego, physical Lego built stuff, and it's just pictures, give him a follow, because he's very talented. That's awesome stuff, man. Nice work. All right, next mark. This is by Jafer, and this is called Dredgen Yost. So what's so cool about this head design here is it's just using your typical G2 headpiece and not putting any mask on it. And, you know, I remember thinking that as a kid, even back to, like, the Toa Mata and stuff. You're like, hey, this head without the mask actually looks pretty cool, too. And kind of the majority of most themes, that was the case, at least in my opinion. Maybe not the Toa and Nika, because they just kind of had a lime thing. You know, that wasn't really an actual distinct head. But, you know, other people might like that, so I don't want to take that away from people there. It is pretty cool. Besides the point, though, it does make a good head. There's no reason you can't use it for a headpiece here. And I think what Jafer's done here is awesome, because he's attached one of these dish pieces to kind of give him this sort of cowboy hat look. And it's a great way of just adding a little bit more to that headpiece there and really making it pop, really making it look nice. Because sometimes I've felt that you've gone, yeah, cool, I'll use that headpiece as just a headpiece, but you feel like it's missing something, and to some degree you're like, well, maybe it's just missing the mask on top of it, but there's just something missing from it. So I like that Jafer has put just a little something on top of it to give it a bit more context, to give it a little bit more. It really works. And even too, just kind of the sort of smoother cheekbones on that G2 headpiece there does give him this very distinct sort of don't mess with me kind of look, at least specifically from some of the angles in the picture here. It's awesome. It's awesome. Definitely gives him this sort of Western look, and also just in general, this mock has this really beautiful sort of worn down, kind of weathered look to the textures here. It looks very much like he probably had armor on top, but these deserts are harsh, and he's lost a lot of that armor, and he's more sort of stripped back, kind of post-apocalyptic and stuff. So I really like that. I think it's cool. It's a great aesthetic, and it works really well with the mask as well, really helping to bring it into context with everything else. So that's another approach you could do with a more simplistic head design, is just really basing a lot of the mock off of the specific mask that you use or head design that you create, paying attention to the textures and shapes on it, or just the color or whatever, and just having the rest of the mock kind of flow off of that one piece. Could be an interesting starting off point, and I think Jafer's done a really good job of that here. Two other things I really like on Jafer's mock here is I love just the little inclusion of a bush in this picture here. That's just a very subtle little detail, but it does a lot. It immediately puts him in a little bit more of a Western context. You start to kind of almost paint the rest of the picture to, you know, where he would be, the sort of land that he might inhabit. And it's just as simple as just putting a Lego bush piece in the background. I love that. I think doing little things like that is always a great idea when you're photographing a mock, because, you know, yes, it's nice to have just a plain old black or white or kind of neutral colored background so that nothing else is kind of pulling away your focus from the art piece that you're looking at. But at the same time, it can be nice to do this, put a couple little things in the background to imply, where they live, a little bit more context, a bit about story, all that sort of stuff. It's a great idea, especially when it's subtle like this. It's not taking away from the mock at all. It's beautiful. It's great. Love the capes as well, giving him this sort of scarf, kind of shawl, poncho kind of look there. That's awesome. Again, really makes this character look like a badass. It's awesome. Great kind of Western feel. So very cool. Next one. This is Runaway, and it's by Mercury Mox. So this is what I imagine, it could be from somewhere else. Did he say in the email? He did not. I'm going to assume this is a Shapeways custom 3D printed mask. Correct me if I'm wrong. It could be from something else. It's definitely not an official piece, but it may not be specifically a 3D printed Shapeways mask. He might have got this off of a bootleg set or something. I don't know. But regardless, the idea of doing that, yes, you know, I was saying at the start of the episode, you know, taking something a step further from just using your typical stock standard masks. Well, can you take a little bit of a step up instead of a sort of slightly bigger step like some of the other mocks here and just use a plain old mask, but instead you use a Shapeways mask? And the amount I talk about Shapeways, you think I'm like getting sponsorship from them. I'm not. I just like what they do. And yet I still haven't bought any masks from them. I need to do that. Anyway, I still think that's a really cool idea as well, you know, really helping to, you know, because also kind of an element of this episode as well is really letting one mask inspire an entire build. I certainly think that Mitch's, Cody's, and Radrix's Spider-Monkey themed mocks, that headpiece was such a stimulus for that mock. Like, I very much imagine it was. I mean, those three builders can correct me if I'm wrong, but it to me seems like certainly the impetus and starting point for all that sort of stuff there. So to me, I think there's nothing wrong at all with doing that through, you know, buying one of these beautiful, beautiful masks online and letting that inform an entire mock. Because hey, if that's enough to get you building and you're looking to get building, that's a great idea, isn't it? But yeah, I think that's wise. I think that's cool, and this mock is a great example of that. So yes, it is just putting a mask onto a character, but is there necessarily anything wrong with that? You know, you could be looking at this and being like, "Cool, I got to be super smart with this," and you know, honor the original but only slightly change it, and or you could just put a mask on the mock. Never forget that too. You know, sometimes the best solution is the super simple, obvious one. And I think this is also a great example of that on this mock here too. Something unique and beautiful about this mock is a lot of these sort of custom cloth elements. It's really not something you see every day, but I imagine these are from some sort of doll, a non-official, non-Lego doll. But this beautiful sort of jacket and these pants here, very cool. Very, very cool indeed. It's a very distinct looking design, not something you see every day on a Bionicle. But beautiful to see that in some of these pictures you can see little bits of CCBS poking out and stuff. So there is an actual constructed figure underneath this. But hey, that could be an option if you're someone who likes to go sort of non-purist routes while you're building. Maybe you could pick up some action figures, maybe you could pick up a doll, or just, hey, if you're really good at sewing or something, you could actually make clothing for your mock, whether it's like a cloak or a cape, or in this case some sort of cool kind of pants and a nice jacket sort of thing. It might work really well, and I think this mock works really, really well. So awesome idea, and really beautiful execution for it. Super cool to see. Nice work. Next one, this is by Gresh Glatorian, and it's called Dracus the Evil Warlord. So certainly one thing that I know I've felt before, and I'm sure other builders have felt it as well, is you're building this beautiful mock, right? It's massive, it's huge, it's great. Or maybe it isn't massive. Maybe it's actually just, you know, a typical sort of normal-sized mock. But as you're doing it, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done, ever. And, oh my god, I'm so proud of this. And then as you're building more and more, you get to another part of the mock, and you're like, everything about this mock was good, but when I got to the arms, or I got to the head, it just stopped looking good. I can't figure out this design and make it work with everything else. Like, what do I do? And sometimes you can kind of get caught in that trap of just trying multiple designs on one specific part, and it's just not going anywhere, and you're like, what do I do? I think this mock is a beautiful example, if we're going back to the head example, where, look at this guy. Big, strong wings, these massive leg design, this very ornate, proud, strong chest, great weapons, and then the mask is just straight up a Knights Kingdom mask piece from the awesome Knights Kingdom sets. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a simplistic mask, not super custom, just using the Knights Kingdom mask piece. Great. Cool. Sometimes you can kind of get caught in that trap of overthinking stuff. You're like, okay, I'm building this really strong, big, beautiful, awesome character. His mask needs to be the same. Needs to be super custom, super awesome. Blah. Or it could just be a mask. Maybe that could work, you know? So, sometimes check yourself before you wreck yourself. Are you overthinking it? Do you just need to put a mask on there? Do you need to just do prefab limbs? You know, maybe you're like, no, it needs to be this intricate design using like 76 pieces. Maybe it just needs like 2 pieces and it's just some Hero Factory bones. Maybe. Give it a try, see if it works. You know, sometimes you can overthink designs. I do it all the time. And then you're like, oh, the simple solution was the best one. Okay. You know, exactly. But yeah, I think using this Knight's Kingdom mask piece here is awesome. It has this beautiful knight-like look to it, which so does this mark. Using this Knight's Kingdom shield piece here too, great looking piece. Awesome weapon as well, this sort of kind of like a bit of a staff to some degree, using a Knight's Kingdom sword as the sort of tip of the weapon here. The hilt is the other end there. And then these claw pieces here to just add a little bit more to it. Really, really nice weapon. And these wings are great too, using cloth for wings, always a brilliant idea. Yeah, I think the mask just flows beautifully, very, very well. This is a great mark, and never forget that too. Take a look at some of your Knight's Kingdom sets. They actually kind of had some pretty cool masks that could easily be translated into Bionicle stuff. Sometimes the connections on them were a little bit more difficult, so you might have to kind of play with some sort of friction connections, or maybe not friction connections. Maybe you can actually find a proper awesome working connection, and if you can, great. Be sure to let other people know how to make that work, because hey, it's, you know, other people might struggle with it. Always a good idea to share your designs. But yeah, play around with your Knight's Kingdom stuff, because it is a form of construction and you can use those masks very well. Could be a good inspiration point for you there. This next mock here is by Matt Goldberg and is called Vastus the Greenwood. So this is a revamp of the Glatorian set known as Vastus. He was actually a really cool character. Really awesome set with a really unique mask. You just don't see it used these days. But what Matt has done here is very, very unique. So there is a set that exists. This is one of the other more obscure CCBS construction themes. These were the superhero construction sets. So this is one of the DC ones. Of course, it's our friend Batman. So we take a look at this Batman headpiece here. So just keep that in mind for now. Just keep thinking about that one. We'll jump back to it in a second here. So let's look at Matt's awesome face design here on this character. It's using that Vastus mask. But then we take a look at the headpiece here. You can kind of almost see a little mouth kind of forming where the mouth kind of was for Vastus. And you're like, what's that? Well, let me read exactly what Matt said in the comments below. So that Batman piece before, he says that the rubber cowl is attached to the head's neck socket by a screw, and the sides of the face are attached by little ridges on the inside. So you can actually take it apart without damaging the piece. And he says when he's actually built the construction here, putting it, mixing it with the Vastus head, he says that it is held in by friction. So the Batman face has a space in the top of the head where a Technic bushing can be wedged in to allow connections. Which is super cool. So the idea is that, yes, that Batman headpiece that I was showing you before, you can, to some degree legally, because there's just a screw, if you unscrew it with a screwdriver there, you can take that flesh element out of the mask and you can put other stuff with it. I think that's really unique and really interesting. And it's that, you know, if you have those two pieces, you can get that really unique construction like we see on Matt's awesome character here. So it is a little bit more of a simplistic head design, but it is taking it to a more unique and different place. And that's really cool. Speaking of a really cool mock, this is one of them. I love that he's used some of these shapeways or third-party hand pieces here, these posable 5-fingered hand pieces in flesh here. It's really cool to see that this character is like an actual kind of human character who's sort of wearing armor on top. Really nice color blocking there. And speaking of the color blocking, I love a lot of the brown highlights. It very much looks like he's wearing kind of leather boots or kind of leather vambrasses there. There's little bits of armor. And then the highlights of green are also cool. The little highlights with the green leaves as well. That's a very nice touch. And always great to see those Gresh blades being used because they're awesome pieces. And they make great weapons. So a lot of really, really cool stuff going on this mock here. So yeah, a really, really unique head design using surprisingly legal connections. You could argue it's illegal because you have to use a screwdriver, and I doubt LEGO really wanted you to do that, but you know, the definition of legal and illegal techniques can be thrown around and misused, I guess, so who knows if this is technically speaking legal or illegal, but regardless, it's unique, and that alone is really exciting. So it's a really cool head design there. Nice work, and something that if you've got those pieces and a cheeky screwdriver, no reason you couldn't achieve it yourself. On to the last mark here. This is by Eclipse Caller, and it's called Commundus the Exhalted One. So this is such a beautiful head design here, using the Mask of Creation, Akimu's mask here, but attaching a few other things around it. So nothing wrong with doing that, of course, just straight up using a mask, but can you add little additions to it? Like this, can you build sort of an interesting apparatus around it? Or could you add, using some system pieces like a scope eye or something unique to the mask? Certain masks have interesting connection points on them, maybe you could. Give it a try. Who knows? Might work. But yeah, it's a beautiful head design here. I really love how that armor piece kind of forms this sort of, I don't even know what it is, but it just looks cool. This sort of mouth guard around the mouth and these sort of claws kind of just taping it all together. It just looks awesome. It's a really great way of using that mask and adding your own personal touch to it. It's great. And Eclipse Caller actually has done a very similar head design before with the claws and that sort of mouth guard, but used other different mask pieces with it. So it's a design that you yourself could use with a whole bunch of other different masks. So it's worth giving a try. But let's talk about Commodius, because he's awesome. Love the use of these Captain Phasma capes here. Very kind of beautiful regal design, the way that they're kind of flowing over onto the shoulders there with those honor chest pieces. That looks very beautiful, ornate, very regal. And then the capes flow down even further onto the waist and stuff. Looks great. I love a lot of these ornate details on the waist too, and the sort of chest as well, using those kind of trap claw pieces from the G2 Bionicle sets there to form this beautiful pattern. And just the lack of gaps on this mock, the great flow between all of these different pieces. It's really a sight to behold. It's actually quite beautiful. I mean, Eclipse Caller is just a fantastic builder, and he's done a beautiful, beautiful job on this mock here. It's just awesome to see. So yeah, I think it's a really unique head design there. Just finding ways that you can get a pre-existing mask and then adding even more to it. So that's it for a bunch of simple but really well-designed head designs in this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you like the mocks you saw in today's episodes, be sure to check the links in the description below to all of these guys' social media. Check out some of the other stuff they've built, give them a follow, and see the other sort of awesome creations that they've made. Also, while you're in the description below, there'll be links to my social media. You can check out some of the other things that I myself have made, including my Patreon, which has been updated recently. If you would like access to the Patron exclusive podcast, which is released weekly, if you become even just a $1 patron, you will have access to that. And a whole bunch of other exciting things. Be sure to check that out and see all the other rewards that you'd be up for if you signed up. Additionally, while you're there, you can see the submission email. It's there in the description, and it's also on your screen right now. If you want to submit any of your own mocks to the show, you can do so through that email. Send me over as many pictures as you want, as much or as little of a description as you want, and send over the email. I'll get it, and then one day it'll appear on the show. But of course, I've got a lot of submissions to work through, so your patience is key there. But one day it will be featured. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully we've inspired you a little bit, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.